Imagine being in a job for over 15 years, thinking you know everything about the people around you, the company's structure, and the power dynamics that make the place tick. Now, imagine that everything you thought you knew is turned completely upside down in a single moment. This is the story of a woman who spent 15 years working quietly in the background, doing what most people would consider invisible work. For over a decade and a half, her colleagues and superiors had no idea that she was the one who owned the very company they worked for. And then, just when they thought they had it all figured out, she made a move that would leave everyone speechless. Stay tuned, because this isn't just a tale about business, it's about power, perception, and what happens when you misjudge someone based solely on their role. But before we dive into this jaw-dropping story, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and leave a comment. We'd love to hear your thoughts on this incredible turn of events. Now, let's get into it. Have you ever heard a story so shocking, so out of left field, that it makes you rethink everything you thought you knew about people, power, and perception? Well, buckle up, because you're about to dive into a tale that not only defies expectations but will leave you questioning everything from the way you see people at work to how you define success. It all started with a woman who was barely noticed. For 15 years, she worked tirelessly behind the scenes, sweeping floors, mopping hallways, and keeping everything in pristine order. Her uniform was that of a janitor, her job simple in appearance, but that was all it appeared to be. Her colleagues barely looked her way, dismissing her as just another employee doing the menial tasks most people wouldn't think twice about. But no one ever bothered to ask who she was, what her story was, or what she might be capable of. And here's the kicker. No one had a clue that this humble janitor, the one cleaning the offices day in and day out, was actually the owner of the entire company. Yep, you read that right. She owned the whole damn thing. For 15 years, she was playing an elaborate game of chess, moving in silence, building her empire behind closed doors while everyone around her simply saw her as a face in the background. No one knew about her wealth, her influence, or her vision. Now let's rewind a bit. You might be thinking, wait, how is this even possible? How did she keep this secret for so long? The truth is, this story isn't just about money or power. It's about the power of perception, the quiet strength that often goes unnoticed, and how sometimes the ones who seem to have the least are the ones with the most up their sleeves. For years, the CEO of the company had been calling the shots. He'd walk into meetings, make decisions, and live a life of luxury that seemed to define success in the corporate world. Everyone respected him, feared him, even believing that his position was untouchable. But in reality, the true power was never in his hands. It had always belonged to the janitor. Now imagine the scene. One day, the CEO walks into his office like any other, expecting his usual busy schedule, his staff bustling around him, his employees doing their jobs, and everything running like a well-oiled machine. He had no idea that this day would be different. He had no idea that the person who'd been cleaning his office for years was about to change his life forever. The janitor, this quiet, humble woman, walks into the CEO's office, her uniform still on, her mop and bucket in tow. But this time, she wasn't there to clean. She wasn't there to do anything mundane. She was there to do something far bigger, something that would shake the very foundation of the company. In an astonishing twist of fate, the janitor, after 15 years of silence, took control. She fired the CEO. Let that sink in. The person who everyone assumed was just cleaning up after the real decision-makers was, in fact, the one holding all the cards. With the flick of a pen and a calm, unwavering voice, she made the decision that no one saw coming. And just like that, the CEO was out. What followed was a ripple effect that no one could have predicted. The office, once filled with murmurs of fear and respect for the CEO, fell silent. Employees were stunned. The corporate world, which often hides its most powerful players behind polished suits and titles, was forced to confront a simple but profound truth. Power doesn't always look the way we think it does. So why does this matter to you? It matters because it's a wake-up call, a reminder that appearances are deceiving, that the most important people in any room might not be the ones wearing the most expensive suits or holding the highest titles. It's a reminder that sometimes the quietest voices are the ones with the most to say, and the ones you least expect are the ones who hold all the cards. Now, you might be wondering how this story ends. Well, the truth is, it's not just about the firing. It's about the bigger picture, the quiet power that lies within all of us, waiting for the right moment to emerge. It's about understanding that success doesn't always come in the form of a title, a paycheck, or a flashy office. Sometimes it's about doing the work no one else is willing to do, building something quietly in the background, and knowing when to take control. If you've enjoyed this story and want more tales that defy expectations and challenge the status quo, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment below. What do you think about this jaw-dropping twist? Could you ever imagine something like this happening in real life? Let's get a conversation going in the comments, and make sure you don't miss out on more surprising stories like this one. Stay tuned for more, because you never know who's really in charge until the moment it all changes. Now that we've witnessed this unexpected plot twist, let's dig deeper into the underlying theme of this story, perception versus reality. It's so easy to get caught up in how things appear on the surface, but as the story illustrates, appearances can be wildly deceiving. The janitor, the woman everyone overlooked for so many years, had one of the most powerful positions in the entire company, and no one ever thought to question it. What does this teach us? First off, that perception is everything, and that's a lesson we can all learn from. Think about your own life for a moment. How often do you judge someone based on their appearance, their job, or their role in society? We all do it, sometimes without even realizing it. And that's perfectly human, but it also means we're vulnerable to missing the bigger picture. Take a moment to think about the power dynamics in your workplace. Who holds the power? Is it the person with the loudest voice? The one with the most credentials? Or could it be someone you pass by every day without even realizing their significance? The janitor in this story is the perfect example of how power can be hidden in plain sight. When we look at successful people, we often assume they must be wealthy, visible, and out there in the spotlight. And while that's often true, it's not always the case. Sometimes, the most powerful people in a room are the ones sitting quietly in the corner, letting the noise and the chaos swirl around them while they remain calm, calculating, and focused. And this is where the real lesson comes in. Silence is often the most powerful form of strength. While the CEO spent years running around, making noise and trying to establish himself as the face of the company, the janitor was quietly observing, learning, and plotting. She understood that success doesn't have to be loud. It can be quiet, strategic, and most importantly, patient. This idea of silent strength is something we don't talk about enough. In a world that values extroversion, bold moves, and public displays of success, it's easy to forget that sometimes staying under the radar and working steadily behind the scenes can lead to the greatest achievements. This story is a perfect reminder that true power doesn't always come from being in the spotlight. In fact, it often comes from knowing when to remain in the shadows, when to watch, and when to act. But don't mistake silence for weakness. That's one of the most dangerous misconceptions we have. People often think that if someone isn't speaking up, if they're not making waves, they must not have anything important to say. But silence doesn't equal lack of power. It's simply a sign that someone is waiting for the right moment to strike. In the case of the janitor, her silence wasn't a sign of weakness. It was the calm before the storm. It's easy to think that we need to constantly prove ourselves, to shout about our accomplishments, and to make sure everyone knows what we're capable of. But sometimes, the most powerful move you can make is to let your actions speak for themselves, quietly and efficiently. When you're focused on the work, when you're putting in the effort day in and day out, you're building something that others can't see yet. But when it becomes apparent, it's often a game changer. The janitor's rise to power wasn't about ego, fame, or recognition. It was about quietly understanding the game, knowing her worth, and waiting until the perfect moment to make her move. And when that moment came, she didn't hesitate. She knew what had to be done, and she did it decisively without a second thought. Now, let's talk about the moment of realization, the moment when the other employees, the ones who had dismissed her for so long, finally realized who they had been working for all these years. Imagine their shock when they found out that the person they had thought of as just the janitor was actually the owner of the company. It was like a light bulb going off in their minds. Everything they had taken for granted, every assumption they had made about power and success, was suddenly turned upside down. And this is where the lesson really hits home. How often do we take people for granted? How often do we fail to see the value in those around us simply because they don't fit into the molds we've created in our minds? It's easy to assume that the people who do the least glamorous jobs are the least important, but as we've seen in this story, that couldn't be further from the truth. The janitor didn't fit the stereotypical image of a successful business owner. She didn't wear fancy suits, she didn't walk around with a briefcase, and she wasn't in board meetings all the time. But she was, without a doubt, the most powerful person in the company. And when she made her move, she proved that success doesn't always come in the form of what we expect it to. This is a reminder that we should never judge someone by their job title, their appearance, or the role they play in society. Everyone has a story, a hidden strength, and a potential to surprise us. And just like in this story, sometimes the most unexpected person is the one who has the power to change everything. As the dust settled and the echoes of the shocking firing rippled through the office, one question lingered in the air. How did she pull it off? The janitor's bold move had left everyone in a state of disbelief, but what most didn't realize was that it wasn't a rash decision. It was a carefully calculated play. She had been working behind the scenes for years, taking in every detail, learning the ins and outs of the business, and patiently building her strategy for when the moment was right. In the corporate world, it's easy to become consumed by the rush of the day-to-day grind. People are constantly putting out fires, handling problems, and trying to keep the ship afloat. But while the CEO and other executives were preoccupied with their own responsibilities, the janitor was doing something they didn't even realize. Observing. She had spent years watching the ebb and flow of company operations. The highs, the lows, the moments of success, and the inevitable failures. And during that time, she saw an opportunity. She understood the weaknesses that no one else seemed to notice, the small cracks in the foundation that could be exploited. Most importantly, she understood how to leverage them. It wasn't just about firing the CEO. It was about knowing when the right time would come. In the business world, timing is everything. You can have the best ideas, the most revolutionary concepts, but if you don't act at the right moment, those ideas can fall flat. And the janitor knew exactly when the time would be ripe for her move. It's easy to assume that power comes from being the loudest person in the room, the one who's always making the biggest noise. But in this case, power came from being patient, from biding her time until the perfect opportunity presented itself. And when it did, she acted swiftly and decisively, without hesitation. She didn't give anyone a chance to question her authority because she had already done her homework. She knew the ins and outs of the business better than anyone else. She was prepared. But what made her move so effective wasn't just her timing. It was her knowledge. The janitor had an intimate understanding of the company's inner workings. She wasn't just another faceless employee. She knew the financials, the operations, and the personalities that drove the business forward. And that gave her a strategic advantage that no one else had. It's easy to think that a company's success relies solely on its top executives. But the truth is, every employee plays a role. From the CEO down to the janitor, everyone has a part to play in the larger picture. And while the CEO might have had the title and the prestige, it was the janitor who had the quiet power that came from knowing everything about the company's operations. When the janitor made her move, it wasn't just about asserting her authority. It was about making sure the company would continue to thrive. She knew that the CEO, despite his outward success, had been making decisions that weren't in the best interest of the business. He had been taking risks, cutting corners, and overlooking crucial details. And those mistakes were starting to show. The janitor saw an opportunity to step in and steer the company in a new direction, one that would be more sustainable, more responsible, and ultimately more profitable. But what's truly fascinating about this move is how it challenges our conventional views of leadership. In the business world, we're often taught that leadership is about being assertive, commanding attention, and making bold moves. But the janitor's strategy shows us that leadership can also be about humility, observation, and patience. She didn't need to shout to make her presence known. She didn't need to wave her hand in the air or make grandiose speeches. She simply needed to understand the company, its strengths and its weaknesses, and then take the reins when the time was right. This is a powerful lesson for anyone looking to make an impact in their own careers. It's easy to feel pressured to be the loudest voice in the room, to make the biggest splash, and to always be on the offensive. But sometimes, the most effective form of leadership is the one that operates in the background, quietly building influence and waiting for the right moment to act. As the CEO packed up his things and left the office that day, he must have realized that his reign had been toppled not by a rival CEO or a major competitor, but by the very person he had dismissed for so long. The janitor had outsmarted him, outwitted him, and ultimately outmaneuvered him. And in doing so, she had proven that power isn't about being seen. It's about knowing when to step into the spotlight and take control. Her decision to fire the CEO was more than just a personal triumph. It was a statement to everyone who had ever been overlooked, underestimated, or undervalued. It was a reminder that we all have the potential for greatness, regardless of our job title, our appearance, or the role society expects us to play. In the end, the janitor's move was more than just a power play. It was a testament to the power of resilience, patience, and quiet strength. It showed that anyone, no matter their position or background, can rise to the top if they have the right combination of knowledge, strategy, and timing. And above all, it was a reminder that sometimes, the most unexpected people are the ones who have the power to change the world. After the dust had settled and the initial shock of the CEO's firing began to wear off, something remarkable started to happen. The employees, those same individuals who had once looked at the janitor as nothing more than a worker cleaning up their mess, began to see her in an entirely new light. They saw the power she had harnessed, the quiet strength she had embodied, and the boldness with which she took control. And as they did, something shifted in the atmosphere of the company. First, there was confusion. Who would take over now? How would the company function without the CEO they had all come to depend on? But as the janitor began to make her presence known in her new role, the fog of uncertainty started to lift. The employees saw that not only was she capable, but she was also incredibly determined to steer the company in a direction that would be sustainable for the long term. It wasn't just about firing the CEO. It was about setting a new course for the company, one that wasn't based on flashy decisions, risky maneuvers, or public spectacle. Under her leadership, the company began to adopt a more grounded, strategic approach to growth. The janitor's years of observation had given her a unique perspective on what needed to change, what had been done wrong, and where the opportunities lay. She knew that in order for the company to thrive, it had to be built on a foundation of trust, hard work, and transparency, qualities that she had lived by all these years. One of the first things she did was reassess the company's values. For far too long, the organization had been driven by profit margins, quarterly results, and the pressure to outdo competitors. Employees were often pushed to their limits, and the company's success was viewed through the narrow lens of financial gain. But the janitor understood that true success doesn't come from merely chasing profits. It comes from building a team, fostering a positive workplace culture, and creating a company where every employee felt valued, respected, and empowered. She wasn't afraid to shake things up. She started holding meetings with employees at all levels, something the previous CEO had rarely done. She listened to their ideas, concerns, and suggestions. She wanted to understand what had been working, what hadn't, and how they could move forward together. This open-door policy was a stark contrast to the previous top-down approach, where decisions were made in closed rooms and employees rarely had a voice. As the weeks passed, the company began to change. Employees started to feel like they were part of something bigger than just a business. They felt like they were part of a community. The janitor's leadership was firm but fair, and she made it clear that while results were important, the people who drove those results mattered just as much. She encouraged innovation, fostered collaboration, and prioritized employee well-being. One of the most remarkable things to come out of this shift was how the company's culture began to evolve. No longer was it about titles and hierarchy. It was about the collective strength of the team. The janitor's leadership was a reminder that the power of a company lies not in one individual but in the people who make it what it is. She made sure that everyone, from the janitors to the managers, felt like they had a stake in the company's success. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were challenges, of course. Changing a company's culture takes time, and not everyone was ready for the shift. Some employees were resistant to the new leadership, unsure of what to expect from a janitor-turned-CEO. But the janitor knew that change wasn't easy, and she took her time to build trust. She didn't demand respect. She earned it one decision at a time. Slowly but surely, the company began to rebound. Its financials improved, its employee retention rate soared, and its reputation as a leader in the industry was solidified. But the true measure of success wasn't just in numbers, it was in the way the company operated. Under the janitor's leadership, the company became a place where people felt heard, appreciated, and motivated to give their best. It became a place where success wasn't defined by the size of the paycheck but by the impact they were making together as a team. And the janitor herself? Well, she became more than just the owner of the company. She became a symbol of what was possible when someone refused to be defined by their job title, their appearance, or their past. She proved that anyone, no matter their background or their role, can rise to the top with hard work, patience, and the willingness to take risks when the time is right. Her story resonated far beyond the walls of her company. People all over the world began to hear about the janitor who fired the CEO, and in her, they saw a reflection of their own potential. They saw someone who had been overlooked, underestimated, and written off by everyone around her, only to rise and prove that success comes in many forms. In a way, her story became a beacon of hope for those who had always been told they didn't have the right credentials, the right background, or the right connections to make it to the top. It was a reminder that you don't need to fit a certain mold to be successful. You just need to have the courage to stay true to yourself, the patience to wait for the right moment, and the confidence to step into your power when the time comes. And so, the company flourished under new leadership. But more importantly, the janitor's story became an inspiration to countless others, showing that sometimes, the most extraordinary success stories begin with the most unlikely of people. As the months passed and the company continued to thrive under the janitor's unexpected leadership, the world began to take notice. News outlets picked up the story, and people from all corners of the globe were fascinated by this incredible tale of underestimation, resilience, and triumph. The janitor-turned-CEO became a symbol, not just of success, but of a deeper message that resonated with anyone who had ever been overlooked or underestimated. Her story wasn't just a headline. It became a lesson in perseverance and the untapped potential that lies within each and every one of us, regardless of our current circumstances. In a world that often prioritizes the loudest, most visible leaders, the janitor's journey proved that sometimes the greatest leaders are the ones who move in silence, the ones who observe before they act, and the ones who are willing to take risks when the time is right. As the years went by, the janitor remained humble about her newfound fame. She didn't seek accolades or attention. In fact, she still wore the same modest clothes she had worn as a janitor, and she continued to walk through the halls of the company with the same quiet confidence that had earned her respect. Her leadership wasn't defined by her title, but by the way she carried herself and the impact she made on the lives of those around her. She was a leader who didn't feel the need to prove herself to anyone. She knew who she was, what she had accomplished, and the difference she was making in the world. Her success wasn't measured by the amount of money she made or the power she held. It was measured by the lives she touched and the change she brought to her company and beyond. The legacy she created wasn't just about transforming a struggling business into a profitable one. It was about creating a culture where people were seen for who they truly were, not defined by their jobs, titles, or appearances. The janitor-turned-CEO taught her employees, and the world, a valuable lesson. Success isn't about the external markers of achievement. It's about the internal strength, the patience, and the determination to rise above whatever obstacles life throws your way. Her leadership style became a model for others. It wasn't about micromanaging, demanding respect, or trying to prove dominance. It was about collaboration, listening, and empowering those around her. She knew that a leader's true power comes not from how many people follow them, but from how many people they lift up along the way. This philosophy began to ripple out beyond the walls of the company. Other businesses started to adopt her approach, valuing their employees as individuals rather than just cogs in the machine. The idea of leadership as something collaborative and inclusive, rather than authoritative and exclusive, took hold. The janitor's legacy wasn't just about her company. It was about changing the way the world thought about leadership. And in the years that followed, as she looked back on her journey, the janitor could see the impact she had made, not just in the business world, but in the lives of those who had been inspired by her story. She had proven that anyone, no matter their background, could achieve greatness if they were willing to put in the hard work, stay patient, and believe in themselves. She had given people the courage to pursue their dreams, no matter how unlikely they seemed. Perhaps the most profound lesson of all was the one she learned along the way. Sometimes the greatest accomplishments come from the most unexpected places. The janitor, who had once been dismissed by everyone around her, had not only risen to the top, she had completely transformed the company, its culture, and the lives of its employees. Her success was a testament to the power of perseverance, quiet strength, and the willingness to defy expectations. In the end, the janitor's story was about more than just one woman's rise to power. It was about the power of possibility. It was about showing that anyone can achieve greatness, no matter their station in life. It was about breaking the mold, rewriting the rules, and challenging the status quo. And it was about proving that sometimes the most powerful stories are the ones that are told quietly, without fanfare or recognition, until the world is forced to listen. And so, as we look at her story, we must ask ourselves, what can we learn from the janitor who surprised everyone by firing the CEO? What can we learn from her patience, her quiet confidence, and her determination to rise above? The answer is simple: that greatness isn't about titles, money, or fame. It's about the strength to stay true to yourself, to be patient, and to act when the moment is right. So, if you've been inspired by this incredible journey and want to hear more stories that challenge what you thought you knew, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share your thoughts with us. What do you think of this incredible transformation? How do you define success? And what role do you think patience plays in achieving it? Remember, greatness can come from the most unexpected places, and sometimes the quietest person in the room is the one who's truly in charge. As the janitor's story became a beacon of inspiration, it sparked something far greater than just a change within the company. It ignited a revolution in the way leadership was understood and approached by people across industries. Suddenly, the notion of a leader was no longer confined to the corporate elite, the ones with the flashy titles or the biggest offices. People everywhere began to question the traditional norms of leadership, and many started to realize that they, too, had the potential to lead regardless of their job title or background. It wasn't long before other employees from different fields began to see the value of the janitor's approach. Her story resonated deeply with individuals in all walks of life: teachers, nurses, small business owners, and even those working in industries far removed from corporate culture. She had become a symbol of the power of persistence, humility, and the quiet confidence that doesn't need to shout to be heard. One of the most significant changes was the way that organizations began to think about employee empowerment. Leaders everywhere took notice of the profound shift that had taken place under the janitor's leadership. They began to understand that the traditional top-down approach wasn't the only path to success. Leadership could be decentralized, and it didn't have to come from the highest-ranked individuals alone. It could come from anyone. Someone in the background, someone who had been overlooked, or someone who had simply been waiting for the right moment to step up. The janitor's success was not only a personal triumph, but a message to employees everywhere. No matter your station, you have the power to make a difference. Whether you're a frontline worker or a mid-level manager, your voice matters, and your actions can have an enormous impact. The idea that success requires grand gestures or public recognition was shattered. Her story showed that the most profound success often comes from quietly making a difference in the lives of those around you. And it wasn't just about business leaders who took notice. Young people, especially those in their formative years, found themselves inspired by the janitor's story. Students, unsure of what their futures might hold, began to realize that the road to success wasn't always a straight line. It didn't require attending the best schools, inheriting wealth, or having a network of influential connections. What it required was vision, hard work, and the ability to see opportunity where others saw nothing. The janitor had proven that you didn't need to fit into a certain mold to succeed. You just needed to keep moving forward, even when no one else believed in you. Her story also resonated with people who had faced their own struggles. Those who had been held back by society's expectations, or by their own self-doubt, found comfort and motivation in the janitor's quiet revolution. They saw her rise not as a fluke, but as an example of what happens when you refuse to accept the limits that others place on you. What was even more powerful was how her leadership style influenced the way companies began to approach mentorship and career development. No longer was it solely about grooming the next CEO or the next executive. It was about recognizing talent in unexpected places and fostering an environment where everyone had the chance to rise. This shift in perspective led to a culture of collaboration and mutual respect that permeated many businesses. The janitor's story encouraged organizations to rethink their approach to leadership, focusing not just on results, but on the development of their people at every level. And the transformation didn't stop there. The impact of her story continued to spread beyond the business world. It became a call to action for individuals in every community. People everywhere began to ask themselves the same question. What could I achieve if I stepped up, even when no one expected me to? The ripple effect of this story was far-reaching, and it planted the seed of leadership in countless hearts and minds. She had proven that leadership wasn't about titles or positions. It was about the willingness to take responsibility, to lead by example, and to act when the time was right. It wasn't about being the loudest or most visible. It was about having the courage to make decisions that would impact the future, even when those decisions might be unpopular or unexpected. As more and more people began to embrace the idea that leadership could come from anywhere, the world itself began to change. New voices emerged in workplaces, schools, and communities, bringing fresh ideas and perspectives to the table. The janitor's legacy was one of empowerment, a legacy that inspired people to recognize the value in themselves and others, regardless of their background, appearance, or job title. Her story had become a timeless lesson. Leadership isn't reserved for the few. It belongs to anyone with the courage to take the reins and shape the future. The janitor, who had once been invisible to those around her, had proven that you don't need a title to make an impact. You just need the strength to step forward and take charge, no matter where you start from. Her legacy was one that would inspire generations to come. The world had been changed by one woman who had the audacity to act when no one expected her to. And in doing so, she not only transformed a company but also reshaped the very concept of what it means to be a leader. The story of the janitor who fired the CEO after 15 years quickly transcended the walls of her company. The world, captivated by the twist of fate and the boldness of her actions, began to pay attention. News outlets, social media platforms, and even influencers took to sharing her incredible journey. People from all corners of the globe, from different industries and backgrounds, found themselves drawn to her story. It wasn't just the spectacle of the event itself. It was the underlying message it carried, that anyone, regardless of their position, could rise to the top if they had the right mindset and the courage to act. What made this story particularly powerful was how it disrupted conventional thinking about leadership. For decades, leadership had been associated with authority, position, and influence. But the janitor's story flipped this narrative on its head. She didn't have the title, the education, or the connections that typically mark the elite in business. What she had was persistence, a keen eye for detail, and an understanding of the true meaning of leadership. Her rise to power challenged everything people thought they knew about who could be a leader and how leadership was defined. It wasn't long before the janitor's story became more than just a viral sensation. It became a movement. Organizations, from small businesses to multinational corporations, began reevaluating their leadership strategies. They saw that employees at every level had untapped potential, and many companies started developing programs that encouraged leadership growth from the bottom up, rather than reserving it for the top-tier executives. Universities and business schools took notice too. Her story became a case study for entrepreneurship, leadership, and overcoming adversity. Professors and industry experts began using her journey as an example of how success isn't just about being in the right place at the right time. It's about preparation, observation, and seizing opportunities when they arise. She had demonstrated that leadership could be found in the most unlikely of places, and her story served as a reminder that anyone, regardless of their background, could achieve greatness with the right mindset. Social media played a crucial role in spreading her story. 2. Hashtags related to the janitor's rise were trending for months, sparking discussions about the importance of empathy, humility, and hard work in the workplace. People began sharing their own stories of unexpected leadership moments, inspired by her courage to step into a role that most would have believed was far beyond their reach. But the global impact of her story wasn't just about the corporate world. It resonated deeply with individuals in all areas of life. From stay-at-home parents to teachers to students, her rise to power became a symbol of perseverance. People saw her as a mirror for their own lives. If she could rise from behind the scenes to lead an entire company, then perhaps they, too, could overcome their challenges and achieve their dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. Her story also made waves in the social justice community. The idea that someone from a marginalized background, someone who was often overlooked and underestimated, could achieve such success was seen as a victory for equality and representation. The janitor's rise to power was a reminder that success doesn't have to be dictated by one's social status, race, or upbringing. She had proven that leadership and influence could come from anyone, regardless of the obstacles they face. Even more remarkable was how the janitor herself handled her newfound fame. Despite the media frenzy and the constant attention, she remained humble. She continued to focus on the work, on building a company that valued its people, and on leading with integrity. She made it clear that her success was never about the recognition. It was about the impact she could have on others. She wasn't interested in basking in the spotlight. She was focused on creating lasting change, and that, in many ways, became the most inspirational part of her journey. Her story also sparked a broader conversation about the value of seemingly small roles in society. The janitor had shown that every job, no matter how menial it may appear, plays a vital part in the success of a larger system. It was a powerful reminder that everyone, from the top executive to the person cleaning the floors, contributes to the success of an organization. In a world that often places too much value on titles and positions, the janitor's story highlighted the importance of every individual's role. The janitor-turned-CEO had become a symbol not just of personal success, but of a broader shift in the way people thought about work, leadership, and potential. Her story inspired a new generation of leaders, people who were willing to step up, take risks, and challenge the status quo, regardless of where they started. And the ripple effect continued to spread, as more and more people recognized that they, too, had the power to make a difference, no matter where they came from or what they did. Her legacy was far-reaching, and it wasn't just about the company she had transformed. It was about the lives she had touched, the minds she had opened, and the doors she had helped to unlock. The janitor's story would continue to be told for generations, reminding people everywhere that greatness doesn't come from where you start. It comes from what you're willing to do with the opportunities you have and the courage to rise above the challenges you face. As the years went by, the story of the janitor who became the CEO remained a powerful reminder that leadership is not bound by conventional rules. Her journey continued to inspire leaders of all ages, industries, and backgrounds. In a world that often prizes visibility, charisma, and traditional paths to success, the janitor's quiet strength and unassuming rise to the top presented a compelling counter-narrative. She taught us that the qualities that make someone an exceptional leader aren't always the most obvious ones. Sometimes, the best leaders are those who work in the shadows, observe, and wait for the right moment to act. Her leadership story carries timeless lessons that continue to be relevant, not just for business leaders, but for anyone looking to make a positive impact in their field. The first key takeaway is the importance of patience. In a world where instant gratification is so often celebrated, it's easy to overlook the value of biding one's time. The janitor's journey shows that success is not always immediate. It takes time to build expertise, trust, and knowledge. She spent 15 years learning, observing, and understanding the company's inner workings, and when the time came to act, she was ready. Patience in leadership doesn't mean being passive. It means preparing, growing, and being strategic. Another critical lesson from her story is the value of humility. The janitor never flaunted her power, nor did she seek the limelight. Even when she was thrust into the role of CEO, she maintained the same humility she had shown as a janitor. In many ways, her humility was a cornerstone of her leadership. She understood that true leadership doesn't come from ego or the desire for recognition. It comes from serving others, listening to them, and working collaboratively. In a world where so many leaders try to make themselves the focal point, the janitor's ability to stay grounded and lead with humility serves as a powerful reminder that leadership is about the people, not the person in charge. Her story also highlights the importance of empowering others. Under her leadership, employees at all levels of the company were encouraged to share their ideas and contribute to the company's vision. She understood that leadership is not about controlling everything. It's about empowering others to take ownership and make decisions. When people feel that they are trusted and their contributions matter, they become more invested in the success of the organization. This lesson is invaluable for leaders looking to create a culture of collaboration and innovation. Perhaps one of the most profound lessons from the janitor's leadership is the reminder that perception is not always reality. For years, the janitor was overlooked because of her job title, her background, and the way people perceived her. They didn't see her potential or her capabilities. Yet, all along, she had been preparing herself for a role that no one imagined she would take. Her story forces us to question our own assumptions about people based on their roles or appearances. It challenges us to look beyond the surface and to understand the value that each person brings to the table. Leaders, especially in today's world, need to recognize that everyone has something valuable to offer, no matter their position or how they are perceived by others. The janitor's story is also a testament to the power of resilience. Over the years, she faced countless challenges, being overlooked, underestimated, and marginalized. But instead of letting these setbacks define her, she used them as fuel to keep going. She didn't allow other people's perceptions to shape her self-worth. Instead, she kept working diligently, building the skills she needed, and waiting for the moment when she could step into her power. Resilience is a vital quality for any leader, as it enables them to weather difficult times, remain focused on their goals, and continue moving forward despite setbacks. Her story also speaks to the importance of vision. The janitor wasn't just working to keep the company running. She had a vision for its future. She saw where the company could improve, where it was faltering, and where it had the potential to grow. Vision is the ability to see the big picture and to understand how the pieces fit together. Effective leaders not only understand where they are but also where they want to go. The janitor's ability to see the future and her courage to take action to make that vision a reality is one of the most powerful aspects of her leadership. The impact of her story isn't just confined to leadership. It's a broader call to empowerment for anyone who has ever felt invisible. The janitor's rise challenges us to reconsider our own assumptions about the typical path to success. Her success wasn't about a specific job or title. It was about believing in herself, taking ownership of her circumstances, and making the decision to lead when the opportunity presented itself. It's a reminder that success can come from unexpected places, and that anyone can rise to the top with the right combination of persistence, patience, and courage. In a world that often defines success in terms of money, power, and recognition, the janitor's story offers a refreshing reminder of the values that truly matter. It's not about titles or fame. It's about integrity, perseverance, and the willingness to lead with authenticity. Her legacy is one that teaches us that leadership is not about being the loudest person in the room. It's about making a difference, whether you're in the spotlight or not. As we look toward the future, the lessons of the janitor's leadership remain more important than ever. In an era marked by rapid change and uncertainty, we need leaders who are patient, humble, and resilient. We need leaders who recognize the value of collaboration, who empower others, and who are unafraid to challenge the status quo. The janitor's story shows us that anyone, no matter where they start, has the potential to be a leader. It's a timeless reminder that leadership comes not from what others think of you, but from the actions you take and the impact you make in the world. As the world continues to evolve, so too does the understanding of what it means to be a leader. The janitor-turned-CEO's story did not just stop at one company. It sparked a global conversation that is still reverberating today. It broke down the walls of traditional leadership models, exposing the fact that leadership doesn't follow a set pattern or a specific trajectory, can arise from anywhere, from any background, and in any role. And as we move further into the future, it's clear that leadership is becoming more decentralized, more inclusive, and more diverse. We live in a time when the traditional corporate hierarchy is being questioned, and many organizations are moving away from rigid top-down leadership structures. Companies are beginning to see the value in empowering people at all levels, realizing that the janitor's story is not an isolated incident but a reflection of a shift happening in workplaces worldwide. As more and more employees are encouraged to step into leadership roles, the business landscape is changing in profound ways. But what does this mean for the future of leadership? Firstly, we can expect to see a rise in authentic leadership. The days of the charismatic, authoritative CEO are waning, and in their place we are seeing leaders who lead by example, those who are honest, transparent, and true to themselves. Just like the janitor, future leaders will be defined not by their titles or outward appearances, but by their ability to inspire others through action, empathy, and trust. The idea of being an authentic leader is already gaining traction across industries, with companies increasingly prioritizing values such as integrity, humility, and collaboration. In addition to authenticity, emotional intelligence will play an even bigger role in leadership moving forward. The janitor understood people, how they worked, what motivated them, and how to support them. She knew that a successful company was built on the strength of its people, not just its profits. In the future, leaders will need to be attuned to the emotions and needs of those they work with, creating environments where individuals feel supported, valued, and empowered. Emotional intelligence allows leaders to foster strong relationships, navigate challenges with grace, and make decisions that take into account the well-being of the team. The impact of the janitor's rise also emphasizes the need for diverse leadership. Her story shows that leadership is not exclusive to one type of person, but is something that can come from anyone, regardless of race, gender, or background. As more companies become focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion, we will see a broader representation of voices in positions of power. This diversification will lead to more innovative solutions and better decision-making, as different perspectives are brought to the table. The future of leadership is one where everyone has the chance to lead, and where the diversity of the team becomes a strength rather than a challenge. Another significant change on the horizon is the rise of leadership through collaboration. The janitor-turned-CEO didn't just make decisions from the top down. She worked with her team, listened to their ideas, and encouraged collaboration at all levels. In the future, companies will move away from the old heroic leadership model, where one individual calls all the shots. Instead, leadership will be more collective, with groups of people working together to achieve common goals. Collaborative leadership is about recognizing the power of the team and the importance of fostering an environment where everyone's ideas are valued. One of the most profound changes we'll see is the growing importance of purpose-driven leadership. The janitor's story wasn't just about a career shift. It was about a commitment to a greater vision, a desire to improve her company and the lives of its employees. The future of leadership will increasingly revolve around individuals and companies that have a clear purpose and a commitment to making a positive impact. Leaders who can inspire their teams with a sense of purpose, who focus on creating value rather than just profits, will be the ones who lead the next generation of businesses. Finally, the future of leadership will be shaped by resilience and adaptability. As the world continues to change at an unprecedented pace, leaders must be able to navigate uncertainty, embrace change, and bounce back from setbacks. The janitor's story is one of resilience, the ability to keep going, keep learning, and keep striving, no matter what obstacles stand in the way. In the future, resilience will be one of the most important qualities of a leader, as they will need to lead their teams through disruption, economic shifts, and the challenges of an increasingly complex world. For businesses and individuals alike, the future holds incredible possibilities. The lessons from the janitor-turned-CEO offer a glimpse of what's to come. It's not just about who you know or what title you hold. It's about how you lead, how you empower others, and how you show up for the people around you. Her legacy will continue to inspire leaders to step up, regardless of their background or title, and to recognize that leadership is about action, empathy, and courage. The janitor's story was never just about one woman. It was about all of us, and the untapped potential within each person, waiting for the right opportunity to rise. And as we look to the future, it's clear that leadership will continue to evolve, becoming more inclusive, more diverse, and more authentic than ever before. As we embrace this new era of leadership, let's remember the lessons from the janitor's journey. That success is not defined by titles or appearances, that leadership comes in many forms, and that anyone, at any moment, has the potential to make a difference. As we continue to process the legacy left by the janitor who fired the CEO after 15 years, it's clear that her story is much more than an isolated event. It's a harbinger of a larger shift in the way leadership is perceived and practiced across the globe. The notion that only the loudest, most well-connected people rise to the top is quickly becoming outdated. In the new era, leadership is about being capable, strategic, and, perhaps most importantly, understanding the needs of those around you. The janitor's story challenges all of us to reconsider the roles we play in our workplaces and communities. It's easy to assume that someone with less visibility is less powerful or less capable. But the janitor showed us that greatness often lies beneath the surface. The quiet worker, the unsung hero, and the one who's willing to work hard in silence are the ones who can change the course of a company, or even the world. In the years since the janitor's rise, businesses have started to reevaluate the way they view their employees. The old model of top-heavy leadership has been slowly giving way to a more inclusive, holistic approach. Leadership is no longer seen as something that comes only from the top down. Instead, it's being recognized as something that can be nurtured at all levels. Companies are increasingly investing in leadership development programs that identify potential in every employee, regardless of their current position. They are realizing that everyone has something valuable to offer, and great ideas can come from anywhere. This is where the true power of the janitor's story lies. It didn't just change the company she led. It changed the mindset of businesses everywhere. Leadership is being redefined, and the qualities that make someone a great leader, humility, patience, emotional intelligence, and resilience, are becoming the standards by which future leaders will be measured. Her story also created an important ripple effect in the way we talk about diversity in leadership. For so long, leadership was reserved for those with traditional credentials, those who had climbed the ladder in conventional ways. But the janitor's unexpected ascension proved that leadership can emerge from anywhere. It doesn't have to follow a prescribed path, and it certainly isn't determined by titles or backgrounds. In the future, we can expect to see more diverse voices and perspectives in leadership roles. Diversity isn't just a buzzword. It's the key to innovation and growth. By embracing different perspectives, companies will be able to adapt more quickly to changes in the marketplace and better understand their customers. This broader understanding of leadership will also be mirrored in the rise of servant leadership. Much like the janitor, leaders of tomorrow will be focused on serving their teams rather than seeking personal recognition or glory. This approach is about empowering others, providing support, and enabling people to reach their full potential. It's about understanding that leadership is about facilitating the success of others, not just asserting control. Leaders who adopt a servant leadership mindset will foster more loyal, motivated, and productive teams. In today's fast-paced, ever-evolving world, change is the only constant. Technology, societal norms, and business models are shifting more rapidly than ever before. And with this change comes the need for a new kind of leadership, one that is agile, adaptable, and able to think strategically about both short-term and long-term goals. The janitor's story, and the way she led after taking over as CEO, provides a powerful example of how to navigate change with grace and efficacy. The key to leadership in this new world is adaptability. The janitor didn't hesitate when the moment came for her to take control. She recognized that the company's future relied on a shift in direction. When companies fail to adapt, they risk becoming irrelevant. The janitor's leadership showed that great leaders are always looking for opportunities to grow, improve, and stay ahead of the curve. They are open to new ideas, willing to take calculated risks, and unafraid to embrace change, even when it means shaking things up. Innovation will also play a major role in shaping leadership in the future. The ability to innovate, whether it's in product development, marketing strategies, or company culture, is becoming one of the most valuable leadership traits. The janitor didn't just keep the company afloat. She reimagined its future. She embraced new ways of thinking, which resulted in more sustainable and forward-thinking strategies. The leaders of tomorrow will need to create environments where innovation thrives and is encouraged from every level of the organization. Additionally, the concept of collaborative leadership will continue to gain prominence. In a world where complex challenges require diverse solutions, leaders will need to work with others to solve problems, build solutions, and create strategies. The janitor's approach to leadership, which involved actively listening to her employees and incorporating their feedback into decision-making, is a model that many future leaders will emulate. Collaboration fosters trust, enhances creativity, and leads to more effective problem-solving. The future of leadership is one where leaders work alongside their teams, learning from them and guiding them toward common goals. In the end, the janitor's story isn't just one of surprise, but of profound transformation. A transformation that ripples through every facet of leadership today and into the future. Her quiet revolution has opened the door for countless others to step into their own leadership potential. It's a call to action for anyone who has ever been underestimated, for anyone who has been told they're not important enough to lead, and for anyone who has ever doubted their ability to make a difference. Her legacy is more than just an inspirational tale. It's a challenge to reimagine what leadership can be. It's a reminder that leadership is not defined by titles, social status, or wealth. It's defined by the impact you make, the way you empower others, and the values you uphold. It's about having the courage to act when others least expect it, and the patience to wait for the right moment to step forward. The future of leadership will be one where humility and vision are valued just as much as skill and expertise. It will be a future where empathy and collaboration are at the core of decision-making. It will be a future where anyone, regardless of background, job title, or education, can rise to lead, as long as they have the qualities that truly matter. The janitor's story will continue to inspire leaders for generations to come. Her rise from the shadows to the top of the corporate ladder is a testament to the power of hard work, patience, and quiet strength. It shows us that greatness doesn't have to shout. Sometimes, it's the ones who are content to work in silence who make the most lasting impact. So, as you reflect on this incredible journey, ask yourself, what kind of leader do you want to be? What are the qualities that define your leadership? And how will you, too, rise when the moment calls for it? Remember, leadership is not about fitting into a mold, it's about breaking it. The story of the janitor who secretly owned the company and eventually rose to the role of CEO was far more than a dramatic twist. It became a defining moment that reshaped how people think about leadership, power, and success. What started as a surprising revelation spread far beyond the walls of her company. It inspired employees, startled executives, and ultimately began to influence the way entire industries view the nature of leadership. Her journey was not simply about replacing one CEO with another. It was about dismantling assumptions, challenging entrenched hierarchies, and reminding the world that leadership is not tied to titles but to character. For decades, the business world has operated on a predictable formula. To succeed, you were expected to climb the corporate ladder, make the right connections, and cultivate visibility. The path to leadership was narrow and exclusive, rewarding those who knew how to play the game. But her story exposed a deeper truth. The qualities that truly make a leader are not found in networking events or business schools. They are found in the inner fabric of a person. Their humility, empathy, patience, resilience, and ability to empower others. These were the qualities that carried her from cleaning floors in obscurity to commanding the boardroom as CEO. One of the greatest lessons of her rise was the renewed focus on emotional intelligence, EQ. For years, EQ had been underestimated compared to IQ or technical expertise. Yet, her success highlighted that the ability to understand people, to read a room, and to make decisions grounded in empathy is just as important, if not more so, than technical skill. Her colleagues respected her not because of her title, but because she truly understood them. She listened, cared, and consistently put the needs of the company and its employees above ego or appearance. This kind of leadership forged deep trust, and trust is the foundation of any lasting success. As her story spread, corporations began rethinking what they valued in their leaders. Recruitment processes started to shift. Interviews were no longer focused solely on resumes or degrees. Employers began asking new questions. How do you handle conflict? How do you lead under pressure? How do you treat those with less power than you? These deeper questions reflected the growing awareness that leadership is about character, not just credentials. And companies that embraced this shift began to see real results: higher morale, stronger innovation, and better long-term performance. But her influence went beyond emotional intelligence. She became a symbol of authenticity in leadership. In a corporate culture saturated with polished presentations and carefully constructed personal brands, her straightforward and transparent approach was a revelation. She did not rely on flashy marketing or self-promotion. She led by example. That authenticity made people trust her, follow her, and believe in her vision. And in today's world, where employees and consumers alike crave transparency, authentic leadership is becoming not just admirable but essential. Startups and small businesses, often more agile than corporations, were quick to adopt these principles. They realized that leadership was no longer about issuing commands from the top, but about empowering teams to think critically and contribute to a shared vision. The role of a leader in this new model is not to dictate but to guide, to create the conditions in which others can thrive. Startups that embraced humility and collaboration began to experience healthier growth, higher engagement, and stronger loyalty from their employees. Her story also reverberated outside of business. In politics, it sparked conversations about the kind of leaders societies need. Those who listen to their constituents with empathy and act with integrity are far more likely to earn trust than those who rely on charisma or rhetoric alone. In education, administrators inspired by her example began prioritizing the voices of teachers and students, leading with humility instead of authority. And in social movements, the lesson became clear. Lasting change doesn't always come from a single loud voice at the top, but from leaders who amplify the voices of the unheard, fostering collective empowerment. This broader cultural impact was particularly relevant in a world facing globalization, rapid technological change, and deepening social inequalities. Diversity of thought, background, and experience is no longer optional, it is essential. Her rise to power, despite being underestimated for years, highlighted that leadership potential exists everywhere. It doesn't only live in elite institutions or among the well-connected. It can be found in the person least expected, waiting for the chance to step forward. Another dimension of her story was adaptability. The world today is changing faster than ever, and disruption is constant. Leaders cannot afford to cling to the status quo. They must be willing to make bold decisions in uncertain circumstances, just as she did when she fired the previous CEO. That single act symbolized the courage leaders need in times of crisis. Those who adapt, pivot, and embrace uncertainty will shape the future. Those who cling to old ways will fade into irrelevance. Alongside adaptability comes a new priority: employee well-being. Her leadership demonstrated that financial performance alone cannot be the measure of success. Sustainable growth requires attention to the human side of business. Employees who feel valued, respected, and supported, both mentally and physically, are far more engaged and productive. The model she embodied placed well-being at the center of leadership, and this holistic approach is quickly becoming the blueprint for the future of work. Her rise from janitor to CEO was more than a corporate shakeup. It was a revolution in how people perceive leadership. She proved that anyone, regardless of background, education, or social standing, can embody the qualities that define a true leader: humility, empathy, authenticity, and resilience. These are the traits that will define the next generation of leadership across every field, from business to politics to education to social justice movements. Her story continues to inspire those who feel unseen, undervalued, or overlooked. It whispers to them a powerful truth: you do not need a title to lead, you need heart. You do not need a stage to inspire, you need courage. And you do not need permission to create change, you only need the will to act with integrity. The business world is evolving. Leadership is no longer about commanding from the top, but about empowering from within. It is about creating spaces where every person feels seen and every voice matters. The janitor-turned-CEO has left behind more than just a story. She has left a legacy of empowerment that will continue shaping the future. In the years to come, as industries continue to evolve, her influence will remain a guiding light. The leaders of tomorrow will not be remembered for their titles but for their impact. And just like her, they will rise not because of privilege or connections, but because of their ability to lift others and to lead with authenticity. Her journey reminds us of something timeless. True leadership is not taken, it is earned. It is not given by position, but proven through action. And it is not measured by the spotlight, but by the lives it touches.